Hello everyone and welcome back. Today we're going to be getting into the average male fantasy or Shoe0nhead's latest video. A little late on it, I get that, my bad. Here we are. For those who've been appreciating the content, please consider subscribing as it does help a lot. I don't really know what this one's about, so I figured we just get into it. However, I will say there's been a lot of talk about what people think men want or should be. It's crazy.
Men, what do they want? Money? Status? Fast, expensive cars? What is the ultimate male fantasy? Is it fame? Fortune? 3 hot chicks at once? Haha, hell yeah, brother. No, according to men on the internet, it's something a little more simple. This is literally just a fetish. I fucking hate men so much. Men are why we can't have nice things. As I was working on an upcoming video, I made the terrible mistake of logging onto Twitter, where I saw this.
I mean, you log on to Twitter, you log on to Blue Sky. Pick your poison, you know? I feel like Twitter might be a little more well-rounded.
Post. A montage from the anime Josie, the Tiger, and the Fish, a movie about a college student who's assigned to take care of a paraplegic girl, and spoiler, eventually they fall in love. Many men were yearn posting in the replies of this tweet and talking about how they wish to fall in love and would love a relationship like this, while many others, mostly women, were absolutely fucking disgusted at this. Why would a bunch of men be fantasizing about being with a woman in a wheelchair? Seems pretty creepy and predatory, right? Also just unrealistic and problematic. Well, in this video, we are going to be talking about why.
I don't think it's because they desired a relationship just like that. I think that maybe that kind of relationship dynamic Bro, there was so much hair on that thing from my husky. Holy crap. I don't think it's that I don't think that there's this need to have that kind of relationship. I think that maybe the dynamics of that relationship has this relatable representation to it. You know, maybe that's something I'll get into later.
Why so many men resonated to that clip and this movie, and why so many people are so confused as to why. We are also going to be reading some absolutely unhinged tweets, as usual, to get to the bottom of why such a wholesome
She loved them
turned
things.
into, once again, another battlefront for the ongoing, never-ending gender war. Men versus women, women versus men, the male loneliness epidemic, the female loneliness epidemic, the dealing with dating apps. Do men prefer thin women or curvy women? Brunettes or blondes? Do women like dad bods or fit men? Now, I am not an anime connoisseur. In fact, I basically know nothing about anime. I am probably the most tourist of all the tourists.
How do y'all feel about anime? I've watched my fair share. I think I like the darker themed ones. I mean, one example would be like Solo Leveling. That's one I've seen. And I would say that's probably some of the best action entertainment that I've seen in a while when you compare it to live cinema. Because I feel like sometimes there's creative styles outside Western culture that do really, really well. And there's a lot of imagination that can be captured better in animation, I feel like, at times. Whereas CGI and realistic acting, or I guess if there's a term to it, let me know, doesn't capture it as well. Or at least it used to, that definitely used to not be the case. I think everything has its place. Entertainment's entertainment, and you kind of just pick and choose based off what you want to be entertained by. That also implies some versions of anime that are suspect? A little bit.
Yeah, hi. I have a question. Was the upskirt shot necessary in order to advance the plot?
Exactly.
I watched Pokemon and Sailor Moon when I was a kid, and a few years ago I watched Beastars on Netflix. Legoshi, best boy. Not a furry, by the way. And honestly, that's about it for my anime consumption. Unless you're counting VTubers. If you're counting VTubers, I watch a lot of anime. But because of this clip going viral, I watched Josie, the Tiger, and the Fish, and well...
That's another little contentious piece too. I mean, I think I remember when VTubers came up on the scene, people were criticizing them. It's like, why don't you want to show your face or just don't show yourself at all? Why are you not comfortable with yourself? And it was an attack on their identity instead of understanding the approach that they didn't want that kind of exposure, but they still wanted to be a part of the space. And I think that's kind of what I took it as. Now, I don't think everyone takes it in that sense, but that's why I never really had a problem with it. You guys go ahead, let me know what you think about it. I think they're all over the place now, so it's it's an open can at this point.
I thought it was a good movie. I recommend watching it. I thought it was a really cute, good story. I only cried a little bit. And I completely understood what the tweet meant by calling it the average male fantasy. So what was wrong with it? Why did this clip go so viral in such a negative way? Why were thousands of people angry at this post? Well, let us dilly-dally no longer and read some of these angry replies to get a better understanding of what the issue is.
Oh boy.
Wholesome male fantasy, and it's fetishizing a disabled girl for him.
Oh man, you're so right.
Oh no. They think, God, why? Always vulnerable, always happy, always needs you. Pretty perverted.
Damn, preach.
Where are these fan fictions coming from? There were like hundreds of tweets just like this. Why did they see a cute montage of a happy couple, a man and a woman happy together? I know, unheard of. Why did they see that and then immediately come to these conclusions? Like, as someone who actually watched the movie, Josie is not always happy. And she's absolutely not portrayed as some, like, vulnerable, ooh-woo.
She's not always happy. It's the man's fault.
She's boisterous. She kind of has a foul mouth. She's very sassy and headstrong. She, like, straight up calls him her servant. But she was also very depressed. She basically never left her house. She was basically a girl failure. As a former girl failure, I love to see representation in media. But they actually show her disability, like, not in a good way. Like, they don't romanticize it, they don't sugarcoat it. And I noticed, unlike a lot of movies, unlike a lot of romance movies, at least like the Hallmark kind, where it's like the stuffy male lead learning to live life from the quirky, cute female lead, he's already got his shit together. And she learns to live life from him. He encourages her to live her dreams. And in return, he learns to live life in a completely different way. And I thought that was really cool and sweet. Also, the animation was really good. Is anime good? Have I been sleeping on anime this entire time? His fantasy is that she becomes permanently disabled and helplessly dependent on him, but can still make him a sandwich. Sounds about right.
Yeah, you're so right.
After watching the movie, these tweets are even more insane. But even putting the movie aside, just seeing that like cute montage out of context, where the fuck are they getting this? These are very clearly just two happy people. But because the caption was the average male fantasy, their mind immediately goes to the darkest, worst faith interpretation of this. The problem is these people can't see any humanity in men. They can't see any humanity in humanity in general. Average male fantasy equals girlfriend with no agency who's completely physically dependent on you and forced into blanket subservience and compliance. Sounds about right. You males are weird for fetishizing.
Your insight is incredible.
Average male fantasy is having a physically disabled girl that they can abuse however they want. Got it. Not to be that guy, I'm gonna be that guy. The infantilization of the physically disabled here is a little, dare I say, ableist. The implication here that people in wheelchairs cannot find love, and if they do, the person who loves them literally just loves them.
I mean, all we're seeing is the norm that men can handle any form of criticism, whether it's malicious or not. What are we talking about here? It's tell us all this time. Men can take it, so therefore men have to receive it. And let me spend my whole life on social media ensuring that this norm continues. I don't know really where it came from, but this is what it is. And yep.
Because they can't run away. Weird.
Oh, don't do that.
Men can be nice to their healthy and normal girlfriend.
Damn.
What makes you think they'll be able to
Where's Rachel at lately? That girl just done disappeared over her own memes.
Handle disabled person as their lover? Whoa. Normal? What do you mean by normal? These people are just so ableist, chat. Can you believe it? Chat? Chat? I don't even live stream. Who's chat? I'm disabled, blind. So I showed this to my boyfriend. He says, I love you because you're you, and you make my days happier. So what if I have to drive you places or help you with cooking and cleaning? I would have done that anyway. Disability has nothing to do with it. I love you. Ma'am, I don't know how to tell you this, but, your boyfriend is a rape. Sorry you had to find out this way. You show this as fantasy.
If they're not going to bash it, they're going to call it cringe or something along those lines, because it's just so unacceptable that something that they're supposed to despise or that they're taught to despise can be possible to provide a form of feeling that was more than what you were already providing for yourself. And that's...
Because it's not true for the majority of men who participate in abuse of disabled people. No, the fantasy is the woman appreciates his efforts to make her happy. Stop lying and abusing women and the disabled.
Your meds, schizo.
You don't even know that fucking guy. What do you mean stop abusing women and the disabled? Bitch, who are you? Also,
not a good person.
The majority of men participate in abuse of disabled people. Are you okay? The majority of men are not abusers. That is a very, very small minority of men. The majority of men are men that just wake up, take a shit, get out of bed, take a shower, go to work, come home, and wait for GTA 6 to come out. That is the majority of men.
Oddly specific.
95%.
I don't think that it's not a genuine belief. Let's be real. Yet again. It's not a genuine belief that women have this preoccupied notion, and it's not all women also, which is primarily the point. If you're loud on social media as a woman, typically you're not happy in your life. A lot of studies suggest that. If you're one of those women, one of those people, yeah, it might apply to you. Maybe do some soul searching and figure out if that's the case or not. Point is that it's better to make it seem like it's impossible to get along with something if you can view it as this complicated, aggressive, nasty thing that has no purpose than what you have demonized it to be. That way, I mean, if you view something in such a terrible light, you can excuse the idea of becoming something that could earn the presence of it. You see this happen in the political sphere a lot, where people overcomplicate the other side to make it seem like it's just so impossibly incorrect. Therefore, they have to be right. And I think it happens in the same essence of the gender war. Crazy that's even a thing. Good job, feminism. And I think that that's what you're seeing. Let me demonize this other side to make it seem like I don't have to do anything with myself to feel like I need that other side. So if I demonize that side, then clearly your side has to come to me because I'm in the good. It's that natural sense of rebel against authority because you can't learn to respect the idea of authority. Not that that's what's happening here. It's just that's like another, I guess, cognitive discourse that occurs when we grow up. You know, it's crazy.
Kind of all rape, but okay. Barging into the romance section of Barnes & Noble like, attention everyone! Rape! Where is that coming from? So close, this is fetish content. Ah yes, the dirtiest, most taboo of all fetishes.
And I think another thing is, this is where the powerful language kind of comes into play, because they know that there's no validity to the argument. So let me say the worst thing possible first and foremost, and therefore you can take me seriously, get an emotional response, because I think one of the things that I've noticed about the common themes of these reactions is notice that it's emotion to action. There's no thought in between of whether it's more and more. Motion, action. You know what that's called? It's called impulse. So all you're going to do is feel, blah, 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 feel, blah, blah, blah. And it's just going to constantly happen. You feel compelled to act against what your feelings dictate because there's no thought between those modes of existence, I guess you could call them. And I think that that's kind of what you're seeing. So when you see people act or behave in this way, it's just immaturity. Immaturity is running rampant, for sure.
A happy relationship. Honestly, in 2025, that might be true. Oh, you want a wife and kids? You sick f***. But yeah. This is literally just a
and like I said, we can easily point this to the political side too, you know.
Perverted fantasy, LMAO. You think it's a perverted fantasy because, how do I put this nicely? You are a pervert. Literally seeing a cute montage of a male and female character having fun together, being in love together, and being like, rape! He's a rapist! This is a fetish! Are these people okay? Stop watching porn. Wait, this is a woman. Okay, stop reading Taken by the Werewolf.
No. You had a point. You know that the female viewership of porn is like through the fucking roof. I think it's matching male numbers, or if it's just under. I think, how much did it grow by? I wish I remembered this one. It was something like 50 to 100% of growth in viewership for women. It's something crazy. The point is the sexualized brain is happening on both sides to this stupid extent. And so for people to jump immediately to forms of intimacy or acts of trespassing in forms of intimacy, things like sexual assault, it would imply that their heads are already there. And that's immediately where they go because there's no concept of relationship building anymore. I mean, you can kind of argue with me about that if you want, but I think a lot of people would agree. People don't talk about forming relationships anymore. They kind of just talk about how do we get to sex. You know, no one talks about that little journey of getting to a point that's reasonable or intimate. It's always, yeah, 2 dates, 2 dates in. I paid for dinner. Where's that? Where's the booty? It's just, we need help.
Billionaire, or whatever the fuck you read. I swear to God, some of the shit women read would make the most depraved internet gooner blush. Or so I've been told. This is...
Nah. I would argue that women in some cases have more concerning fantasies than men. Now, if we look at the extremes, I think you're going to find the same bad crap, to be honest. Like, it's the frequency and the potency of the extremes on both ends, male and female, is pretty rough, man. It's pretty rough.
Literally just a fetish. Okay, listen, I'm not gonna pretend there's nobody out there who's like, she can't run away, she has no legs. I'm not gonna sit here and pretend there's nobody out there who has a crippled, disabled fetish, okay? I've been on the internet for 20 years. I've been on DeviantArt. I've seen shit you wouldn't believe.
Damn.
But the majority of people, probably most, if not all the people responding to this, do not have a cripple fetish, okay? In fact, her being in a wheelchair basically has nothing to do with it. Much like how females coom over, like, vampires or, like I said before, the billionaire werewolf.
No, I don't think so. I think the wheelchair is an analogy. I'm gonna get deep on this one. I think the wheelchair represents a more comfortable approach to enabling a man's concept of provision and protection. If a woman's in a wheelchair, he's going to have to typically provide those things, or is more likely to provide those things. I think the wheelchair can often be a resemblance of a woman's daunting insecurities, and it can take many forms. It's just that in anime, or at least in this anime in particular, this form of entertainment, they decided to display that as an open form of physical representation, when typically it's cognitive or emotional. And I would argue that has something to do with it. And then I think the reason why, like I said at the beginning, the reason why a lot of men saw that and had a reaction over it, I think men like to be part of trends too. When they see the bros react, they got to react in likeness. You know, it's kind of like locker room bullshit where, you know, one person's hyped, so everybody gets hyped. And then the next thing you know, it's just like randomly hyping each other up in this aggressive, funny way. I think that has a little bit to do with it. But I think that the reason why it caught that wave is because it had this sense of relatable representation, that here is what this could look like, a man being able to protect and be a provider to, and not just obviously in the financial sense, but in an emotional and physical sense, because of the inability or incapability that the girl was facing, right? The hardships that she had to face, and how he decided to, even though she made it that far on her own, I'm in your life now. This is how I plan to support what you're doing to make it more manageable, to allow you to be more capable, because I am meeting you at that 50-yard line where we share a relationship. So I think that the wheelchair does have a piece to play. Let me know what you guys think. I don't know. Maybe I went too damn far and I'm in the abyss drowning by myself, but keep it going.
Fantasy. This is just the average male fantasy distilled down to its most extreme. So what is the average male fantasy? The average male fantasy is the fantasy of both men and women alike. It is simply to love and to be loved. But more specifically, the male fantasy is to be a protector and a provider for those that they love. Put a pin in this, because we are going to...
I don't think she's right there. That's not the average male fantasy. I would argue that the average male fantasy, subjective, but I think that a lot of men envision themselves doing something that they weren't sure they're able to do, and then being able to accomplish it is a form of fantasy in itself. Now, obviously, you got mature and immature fantasies. I guess the immature fantasies would be more towards the impulsive things that would physically feel pleasing. The threesome, hell yeah, brother, right? I think that's along that route of fantasy. But then you also have probably more mature fantasies that also feel good in their own direction. Maybe something towards a cognitive development or a display that they tackled something that they weren't sure they were able to do, but then they went through it, struggled, suffered, and then they came out on top, regardless of if they could envision themselves being the thing that could accomplish that in the end. Then they end up doing it, and I think that is a fantasy in itself, or like envisioning themselves being able to accomplish that task. Now, what that can look like with kids is maybe facing that bully, and maybe that's a fantasy in their head, and maybe they'll tie like more action-packed themes to it. Maybe they learn martial arts out of nowhere, and they kung fu kick the bully in the head, and they won, and they were victorious, and people saw them in a better, more respectable light moving forward. Right. And that's like what it could look like for kids. And obviously for men, it can look something similar, whether it be job related or socially oriented. It's along those lines. To say that to provide and protect is a fantasy, no, that's an expectation. And I think that we need to know the difference there. And I think Shoe's a little off on this one. But I mean, as a woman, it's hard to have that connection to that belief. And obviously, it's the same essence with men trying to understand the subjectivity of a female fantasy, right? And it's the same essence.
Come back to this in a big way, trust me. The average male fantasy is being a globally known terrorist. The average male fantasy is that a woman who isn't fat.
Yo, erase everything I just said. Bam, she got it.
The average male fantasy is actually job security. You know what? These guys may have a point here. Pedophile alert. Men want disabled child wives. Average male fantasy is a disabled child. More proof that men are pedos. That's a little girl. This is weird. So, first of all, she's literally older than the guy. The guy is 22 and she is 24. In anime years, he is practically hag maxing. And yes, she may be physically disabled.
No, I think doesn't Japan do the representation of youth like that? Or am I tripping? I don't know. I don't want to get too much in the roots of this, but I'm pretty sure it has something to do with the representation of youth, and that's typically how they view women. Maybe I'm wrong. Or at least that's how they view innocence, something along those lines. But I know it's an artistic expression, something like that.
But aren't all men mentally disabled in their own special way? At least the ones in my audience.
Thanks.
They will freely admit this. Maybe she, the older woman, is taking advantage of this sensitive young man. Have you ever thought of that? She looks like an 11-year-old child. Where are her breasts? First of all, really weird way to say that.
It goes straight to it again.
Child. Show me her titties.
Yeah.
Also, I love how like when anime women have huge boobs, it's disgusting, Coomer brain or whatever. But if the anime woman has small boobs, she is a child and you're a chimo. Can't fucking win. Also, if she had big boobs, they'd absolutely be like, wow, look at this sexualization of the disabled. Also, you know like adult women can be flat-chested, right? Like that actually exists in real life. Like adult human women can have small boobs.
Wrong.
We love all titties here on the Shoe0nhead channel. All titties is good titties. End of story. Women fantasy. A boyfriend with depth and the loving, soft, deeply caring side of them. Men's fantasy. 12-year-old anime girl who looks and speaks like a toddler. Also notice how she's literally the shape and size of a child. Yuck. Have you people ever seen a child? No. You're all childless. Silly me. She's not even that short. She's just sitting. See, like when they're laying side by side, she's like a full-grown adult woman. Why do these people look at this and immediately think of child rape? Go to therapy. And listen, I know with anime it can get a little weird, right? Like, excuse me, Poo Poo Pee Pee Chan is 2,000 years old and this is Poo Poo Pee Pee Chan. But this does not even look like a child. This looks like a cute woman. This is like a random rant, but I feel like there are no more cute women nowadays. You know what I mean? You have all like the Insta baddies, the ethos,
no, you're right.
The e-girls,
yeah, you're right.
The
okay.
muscle mommies,
the
boss babes, the boy babes. But I feel like every woman is just hot now. Which, by the way, I don't think is healthy for the male psyche whatsoever. You shouldn't wake up and be able to scroll through pictures of, like, the hottest woman you've ever seen in your life, like, 20 times before you've had, like, your morning cup of coffee.
Well, I mean, I think that's the emphasis of the angular face, right? And everyone trying to achieve the same, what is it, the almond-shaped eyes, the nose, the cheeks, the, whatever the you know, the shit that they got all over. The point is that every woman's trying to achieve the same thing because they have been judged, at least within their own social existence, that this is attractive. If you're not this, you are not attractive, because these women get attention. They don't care what kind of attention they get, because the reality is that the women that get that kind of attention, guess what kind of attention it is? It's that one night kind of attention. It's that hit you up at 11 p.m. at midnight kind of attention. It's not a put a ring on that finger attention. And I think that because they see that as some form of relational or social success, there's this desperate need to duplicate and replicate. And women are the worst at that comparative element. They will really, and the men do it too, for sure, but women really compare themselves to this really rough point. And I think that the more insecure, the more comparison. Obviously, technology has a way of reinforcing that belief and reinforcing that way of existence. So naturally, we're going to have this constant feeding of insecurity. Let me be more like this so I can be more like what is accepted. Not realizing that that top 1% of IG model isn't acceptance. It's just a bullshit billboard. And I think that some cultures get it right. There's like, I think it is in Chinese cultures, the roundness of the face is considered innocence. Something along those lines, where I've seen it in old and like ancient art styles. It's pretty dope. But point is that we kind of went away from it. And not only that, you see it in what was that plastic surgery crap that happened in like South Korea, where they just, everyone's face was literally mimicked. Some of those faces were scary as hell, man. Like Leatherface, like they're on the next Saw movie, just freaking people out.
You shouldn't log in and immediately be one-shotted by 1010s all day, as if that wouldn't make you go insane.
Well, yeah, and then that obviously affects the male brain too, because they start to think that, well, I need to get a girl like this because then that's going to make me feel more like a man, not realizing that the man that you're trying to become isn't probably a good man.
As if that wouldn't make you crash out.
Yeah.
Like back in the day, you'd probably see like one fine dame on your bus ride to work, and you'd think about her for 40 years until the day you die. That's how it used to be. That's how it should be. Now every woman is like a crazy, hot, unobtainable Instagram goddess with the fattest of ass. Zoomers don't know how good we had it. You'd go to Blockbuster and the 21-year-old cashier behind the counter would be the most adorable woman you've ever seen. No Botox, no lip filler, just a pure soul, full of joy and whimsy. And now women are full of hate and SSRIs. But they're hot. They're hotter than they've ever been. They're hotter and more depressed than they've ever been in history. Sad. What were we talking about? Oh yeah, anime. I didn't take my Vyvanse today, could you tell? Men's fantasy.
Shut up.
A big titty woman with the face of a 16-year-old that is useful for cooking, cleaning, and sex. Women's fantasy. Gets treated like a queen and a man who keeps tracks of our periods so he can take care of us. I think I speak for a lot of women here when I say our fantasies
Subjective.
do not, in fact, include men tracking our periods. Personally, if my husband was like, honey, just a reminder, you're in your luteal phase, I'm taking the kids. Men like to pretend they want this, and then they beat their wife when dinner isn't ready or their son when he's misbehaving. First of all, I'm sorry that happened to you. Yeah. But there are, in fact, good men out there. I've seen them. Some may be in this very audience. Sorry, I couldn't keep a straight face.
I mean, a lot of people do feel that some of these comments are projections. It's a hard argument to have, though. To say, like, are you in such a like disrupted state and this chaotic state where you just have to, and there's no one for you to genuinely talk to, or there's no one around you that actually listens to you, that you just feel the need to mind vomit on the internet about your personal life by pointing the finger in that manner? Like, I think that's, I don't know.
This is the Shoe0nhead audience. You're all gremlins. Male fantasy equals a woman that can't run away from him. A woman that's dependent on him. Interesting. When men are involved, it's basic survival instinct to assume the worst. Men are guilty until they prove themselves innocent. What? You know what? I take my opinions back on free speech. I changed my mind. No more free speech. No more free speech until you bitches learn to behave. A woman's fantasy is a man who won't rape her, and a man's fantasy is raping a woman. I'm sorry, where is the rape, ma'am? Maybe that's how you see it, because you're brainwashed to hate men. So true. I hate how... But in reality, women are the real demons here. Oh, god damn it. We just want a happy relationship. Is it so much to ask for? Yes. Yes, it is.
Yeah,
Oh,
nowadays.
look, more
for sure.
misogynistic gooner fantasy slop written by misogynistic gooner men. This is why 70% of anime is garbage.
Oh.
So, here's the thing. That, misogynistic gooner fantasy slop written by misogynistic gooner men was actually written by Saiko Tanabe, a woman.
You feel
A
stupid
woman
yet?
wrote this story.
Yeah.
And I feel like a very important detail everyone is sleeping on when they covered this was the fact that this is very much the female fantasy as well. A man loving you for who you are despite your flaws, literally sweeping you off your feet and carrying you around on adventures, helping you live out your dreams, face your fears, and supporting you through the good and bad times. You're going to sit here and tell me that's not the female fantasy too? Is this not the basic female fantasy? Is this not the knight in shining armor coming to rescue you and falling in love with you?
I know, but that what he represents is counterintuitive to the feminist message of you don't need any of that. And you could have done it all on your own anyway. So when he comes along and assists you, helps you, whatever term you want to use, fit the synonym here. You shouldn't feel anything about it because you're already doing that for yourself anyways. It's like, holy shit. No wonder you ain't happy. No wonder the entitlement is so real. For women nowadays, it's crazy.
Why on earth are so many women so mad at this? Are men now the
It's
hopeless
kinda obvious.
romantics? Are men now the ones yearning for a fairy tale romance?
No.
Is this why all the Disney remakes are like, she's not gonna be saved by the prince, she's a strong, independent woman? Meanwhile, men still want to be the prince, men still want to be the knight in shining armor. Men are like, I will save you from your monotonous 9-to-5 job. I will give you a house and babies. And women are like, no, I must be an actuarial consultant. Be gone, vile misogynist. Is that what is occurring here? Also, that aside, there literally is a gender-swapped version of this story called Perfect World. It is a manga.
That'd be-
Manga?
How y'all feel about that story though? I feel like when, maybe I'm tripping, maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like that story isn't as relatable. It is what it is.
Go. I don't know. Do not come for me, weebs. Men will statistically leave their wives and partners the moment they find out they're disabled or have a life-threatening condition. You're right, it is a fantasy. Actually, that study was debunked by the authors themselves, who admitted they did the math wrong.
Yeah.
It's actually not much higher, but then again, even if it was, and it happens, I've seen it happen to people, it's terrible. Marriage should be through sickness and through health. But that's not really the point here. And the fact that so many people are focusing on the wheelchair part of this just proves that they just don't get it. The ones of pure mind and pure soul get it.
I think it's just more so they're too literal. They can't grasp a nuanced thought, nor do they have the focus to kind of journey down that path a little bit, or at least be able to gauge in creative impressions and expressions. It's crazy that so everything that you view is just like this shallow representation, and it can't get any deeper than that, because anything deeper than that is either going to be it's going to feel inadequate, or you're going to feel inadequate because you don't understand initially, or you're going to be uncomfortable with going any farther, and you're more comfortable at a shallow judgment because it makes you feel confident and you fit the smart label better, because smart people by the label means you figure out things so fast, right? Because you're just so smart and you believe yourself to be a smart person. You need to enact behaviors that continue and reinforce that title. So I feel like that's kind of represents a lot of people on social media in general, or just people with quick, snappy comments.
But these fucking semen demons out here, they don't get it. But not all semen demons. The amount of people in comments who just don't get that men want a cute, loving girlfriend is beyond me. They call them creeps for wanting actual love and not a girl boss who only wants your money. Ah, thank you. A sane person.
Yeah.
Hopefully the replies aren't full of people calling
no,
her
100%.
pick me. Pick me alert.
Yep.
Least obvious pick me. Me, pick me please. Hope he picks you, sis. Pick me, pick me, pick me. An incel could have written this. Fuck. Why are so many VTubers either pick-me's or racist? You mean why do so many female VTubers disagree with you? Why so many aren't towing the mainstream liberal feminist NPC line? Because they can. See, the most powerful weapon women have against other women is social ostracization. You don't want to be seen as a pick-me or a racist, so you keep your mouth shut in order to survive in female social circles. But in the cases of VTubers, virtual YouTubers, they're basically anonymous. They can say anything they want. They're basically wearing a mask. They're free from the chains of the eternal HR longhouse.
That's not true. They still get pressured into having equivalent thoughts, like opinions, all kinds of stuff. They're still caught up in groupthink like everybody else. The only difference is that whatever insecurities they have about their physical representation or how they look is not as much displayed, but doesn't change the cognitive thought that you put out into the world. That's still going to be judged equally.
But apparently, even being anonymous online does not save them, because they still get doxxed for simply not hating men.
Oh,
Lovely.
shit.
Maybe I should save this rant for a different video someday. Moving on. Men are why we can't have nice things, by the way. First of all, men make all the things. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Also, I just realized it was a man saying that. It was a whole-ass man saying men are why we can't have nice things. I don't deserve this trophy. This is for you, sir. This is for you. I am not worthy. Listen.
I don't know how I feel about male feminists, but it seems like when we come across men who take the stance of despising other men as a form of empowering women, stop wasting your life. Go do something with yourself. You're really upset about something. There's some stuff that you need to figure out, man, and you... Trust me, yo, you ain't gonna get that data boy, all right? Don't stop worrying about being the submissive character in the realm of women. Get some respect for yourself, I think is really the overarching theme here.
I make women jokes. I'm very critical of feminism and propaganda aimed at women. But you will never catch me in a million years saying some shit like women are why we can't have nice things. I have a mom, I have female family members, I have female friends, maybe one day I'll have a daughter. Women make the world a beautiful place, and like men, can be flawed and deserve criticism, like anyone else. But there's something genuinely so cucked about people who put down their own gender or race. Oh god, race. Self-hating white people. Don't get me started on self-hating white people. White people are so evil. I hate being white. White people can't dance. White people food is so gross. You're not getting into Wakanda, bro. You're not getting invited to the cookout. Enough. But yeah, women were not the only ones who had a problem with this. There were a lot of men who didn't quite relate to this being the average male fantasy. It's fine to love the disabled. I didn't need to remind you that. But to glorify it? This anime is certainly Marxist propaganda. The movie is about him taking a job as her caretaker, and when he learns of her dreams, he makes it his mission to help her dreams come true. So it is Marxist propaganda to help a disabled person pursue their dreams? Yeah, it's woven in. Empathy is the target of propaganda. Marxism is when girl in wheelchair. I love this. Empathy is the target of propaganda. Every piece of media that makes you feel empathy is communism. Political brain rot. If you're at the point where you see this and you're thinking of communism, you need to log off. You are unwell. I'm sorry, but when I
mean, obviously it's just ironic because they'll see this, call it propaganda, but then get easily influenced by all the other shit that they see and be like, oh my god, this other stuff is so right though. It's like,
produce, I don't want a high probability of my offspring being mentally or physically retarded. We need a better class of incels whose bar is higher than the retarded. She's not retarded, she has a spinal injury that's not genetic. Also, what is this LARP? I love how everyone is just kind of having like a normal conversation about this clip, and this guy just comes out of nowhere like, I would never put my pure white seed in such a vile creature.
Eugenics.
Like, you absolutely know this guy has a non-white girlfriend. They all do. All these like I hate white people women always have white boyfriends. All these I hate non-white people boys always have non.
I don't know. Sometimes I think that's just how they represent themselves on social media and online. Like they just have to be this justice warrior.
White girlfriends. I don't know what it is, but I've seen
it's
it
a bit of a stretch,
too many
though.
times. I guarantee you when this man logs off of his Black Sun Roman statue Twitter account, he's clapping Latina booty cheeks. My fantasy is not being a simp, but okay. Fellas, is it simping to love a woman? Nah, this is not the male fantasy. That man is a beta male. If she wasn't in a wheelchair, she would leave him for Chad. Fellas, is it beta to love a woman? This is not my fantasy. This is some gay shit, to be honest. Fellas, is it gay to to love a woman what no pussy does to a motherfucker. Brother, I've seen what pussy does to a motherfucker.
Yeah, that's true.
And it's far worse.
Yeah,
the average male fantasy is taking care of their crippled wife. I don't think I've ever had that fantasy before. I thought it was going to be about going on some quest to kill the dragon to win the princess or something. It is. That is the average male fantasy. But there are no dragons to slay. There are no princesses to save. But there is that little old lady in the grocery store who can't quite reach that top shelf. There's that heavy box the pretty girl you work with can't quite lift herself. There's that jar of tomato sauce your wife can't quite open. There's that Lego set your little son can't quite put together himself. Or there is this paraplegic girl who wants to see the ocean. This is the Princess and the Dragon story. And despite what many are told, men do have a lot of love to give. And they want some kind of excuse or mechanism to show that love. In a world where men...
She's still a little off with the reference to average male fantasy. That's just my personal opinion. And obviously y'all can share your comments. But I think that the idea of the dragon princess saving the damsel, I think that that's obviously a poor representation if you want to talk about how men conduct themselves. I think it's just kind of navigating a hardship in order to secure something that is successful or secure a form of relational success, becoming something that shows the woman that she should choose you. But then in turn, obviously, this is where saving kind of gets misconstrued, I think. I think the concept of saving translates to the male typical behavior of solving a problem. Right. And that's kind of where you get the let me fix her. I can fix her shit come from. But I think that the only real saving that you're doing nowadays is either saving them from their situation where they're unsure of what the hell they were going to do and whatever the hell self-harm was currently happening, whether by mental influence, emotional influence, physical influence, what have you, and then providing a traditional relationship and the standing of that. But I think that the only saving that you're really doing is it is rewiring a feminized brain. I think that there's a lot wrong there, and I'll probably hit on it later. But let's just keep it going.
Expressing themselves is either seen as toxic or gay. And one way of expressing that love is solving problems. Men fucking love solving problems. I don't know what it is. They also love reading Wikipedia articles. The amount of times I walked over and my husband was reading a random fucking Wikipedia article about like the world's tallest buildings or like a random battle in World War II. I didn't know if this was autism or what, but apparently it's a man thing. Anyway, yes, men love solving problems. And in a world that makes them feel useless, makes them feel like they
I mean, I read, but not Wikipedia. I feel like peer-reviewed articles.
Have no purpose, men desperately feel like they need to prove their worth. They are desperately looking for a purpose in life. So it is not at all shocking to me that the modern young man is seeing a clip like this and longing for this. A lot of modern men don't have a chance to prove themselves.
I don't think it's worth. I would say their capability. I guess that could be synonymous to worth. But once men find a purpose, that's kind of a set in stone kind of thing. And then they develop into the thing that can pursue it adamantly and consistently. But if every act to solve a problem is a man displaying his worth in the relationship, I mean, I think that's more of an external perspective, right? How does the woman judge his ability to solve that problem should he try to? I think that's what really indicates the worth, right? Or at least if you're with a woman that is genuinely understanding of you. Something along those lines.
To make something of their lives. They don't have a chance to provide anything for anyone because they don't have anything to provide and they don't have anyone. They are doing everything their grandfathers did, but seeing none of the results. They're lost. What can they provide? And as I said earlier, her being in a wheelchair is the protector and provider instinct taken to a extreme. And yes, it is a fantasy, considering if you ask anyone who's actually in a wheelchair, they know it's not all butterflies and rainbows, and they know that it's hard on relationships. It can be difficult on their partner. But just like in the movie, it's not shown as butterflies and rainbows. Josie feels like a burden. But towards the end of the movie, the guy takes on that burden. Not because he gets something in return, but because it's his duty. Because it makes her happy, which makes him happy in return. Loyalty, duty, virtue, acts of service, big or small. Men live for that shit. And yes, these are stereotypes. Not everyone fits into these boxes, blah, 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 blah. But
no, it's not even a stereotype. It's an expectation. Like I said, it's not inherent. It's not. It's an expectation that we are typically capable of. It is not something that's immediately strive for. It's more of a role that we've accepted because that's the expectation. But it's not something that we dream of doing. I don't think that's really what men dream of doing. Like, let me get to a position to protect a woman for the rest of my life. It's more along getting to those positions. And then that in itself allows me the ability to do these other things. So I think we're putting the cart before the horse on this one a little bit. But I know that that's how the majority of the world understands it. And so I don't blame her for the way she interprets.
For the most part, it's true. When many men look at this relationship, that is what they see. And a lot of modern women are looking at this relationship and being disgusted because, in a way, it's the complete inverse of the strong, independent woman they've been sold. They've been told they need to be. The
biggest
modern
problem.
woman crafted by modern Disney for
The
modern
biggest problem,
audiences. Unlike the Hollywood-crafted modern woman, this woman does need her man. She is not strong and she's not independent, at least physically. This doesn't mean she's like an empty vessel with no thoughts or freedom. No, in fact, in the movie, Josie does roll away from him a few times. It is a fantasy not because of a power imbalance, but because the man has a tangible purpose, and the woman is willingly and lovingly letting him fulfill that purpose.
Because I can
That's
depend
fair.
on you. I know that if I ever feel frightened, I can just reach out to you.
Men simply want something good to die for, to make it beautiful to live. This manifests in a lot of ways, but the most common is having a loving partner and or a family. Something unobtainable to many people nowadays. So yes, literally one of the most normal things ever is becoming a fantasy. Sad. Also, men will deny this, but they absolutely have a biological clock. It may not hit in your teens or your 20s, but one day you're going to have a dream. You have a little daughter making you pancakes with your wife in the morning, and you're not going to be able to get it out of your head. And that is the male biological clock. Everything you do, the money you make working that grating 9-to-5 job, it will all be for something bigger and more important than yourself one day. You will come home to a warm and happy home, greeted by people who care about you, and love you, and rely on you, and everything will make sense then. Until then, you'll just be on the internet, being called a misogynist, for wanting something bigger and more important than yourself, for wanting something beautiful and normal. And that is the average male fantasy. That and 3 hot chicks at once. Hell yeah, brother! Haha, you know what I'm saying? So that was that little video. Men in the comments, let me know. Am I correct? Is that the average male fantasy? Or is it not that deep? Men and women in the comments, what is your fantasy? And no, I don't mean that. I don't want to hear about how you want to be crushed by a 12-foot futa. That is between you and God, not you and Shoe0nhead. I mean, what is your ultimate dream? Do you want to travel the world? Do you want a nice big family one day? Do you want to own a farm? Do you want to live in a shed in the woods and make pipe bombs? Let me know in the comments and I will see you soon with a new video.
So that was Shoe0nhead's average male fantasy. And damn. All right, so there's some truth, there was some hate, and we all kind of already know where all this stuff comes from. If you don't know, then I'm about to explain it. So listen up. I think that the reason why this caught a big wave is because it was a relatable representation of what a man can do that has an intimate return. A lot of people don't want to believe that relationships are transactional. That's bullshit. Of course they are. You give me your soul and I'll give you mine, and we'll do this at an equivalent exchange to the point where we do it at the same pace or attempt to do it at the same pace to allow ourselves an easy mode, or not necessarily easy, but a continual mode of gaining trust and faith. People who throw their heart out there in today's society and expect a return that's entitlement. I know that sounds contradicting. But the idea that we are still in this good faith argument of relationships, it's not the past anymore. It's the present. Technology has changed a lot. And maybe we don't want to give that the credit it deserves, for good or worse, but it has. And it's changed. And this is one of the things that has changed. People are far more careful, far more cautious. It's scary out there. Options are continuous, depending on your social standing or your attraction, what you're capable of and what you can be seen as. There's a lot more elements now. And so people need a more safer route to relational success. That's the truth of it, I feel like. The truth about male fantasies is that it's a bit of a dichotomy. And like I said before, mature to immature. You're going to have some immature male fantasies that involve impulse and things that might feel good, whether it be forms of pleasure or entertainment. That kind of stuff exists. That's why dreams exist in a sense of good dreams. But then you also have more mature male fantasies that involve some kind of incremental success or achieving something when you didn't know it was possible. What I already talked about. Facing something that you weren't sure you could face, but you can envision yourself being the champion at the end, and how good that could feel in a sense that it's not like pleasure, it's more like faith and confidence. And that's something that's obviously a little different. Now, a lot of people don't want to think that those kind of delayed gratifications are worth anything, especially in the age of technology where everything's quick and impulsive, but those matter all the same as well. I think that is the typical average male fantasy, or being able to show or prove they're capable. They could when they weren't sure that they could. I think I found myself in typical or different examples where I envisioned myself tackling an obstacle that I wasn't sure, but I could see myself at the end, or at least envision myself doing so. And I think that has a little part to play with that example. Maybe that's biased, maybe that's subjective to me. I think the average male fantasy in reference to relational success is a little different. Like I said, the concept of saving the princess, the damsel, is just the male behavior of solving the problem. But I think that the concept of saving, like I said, is really attempting to defeminize a woman's brain to reasonably be able to navigate a traditional relationship. Because me personally, I think that there was a bit of a cost when we were demanding women have more privilege for the past 60 years. I think that there's some effects lingering from that either we didn't anticipate or we don't want to accept as the full responsibility of. Now women are standing on these positions of privilege where men have to jump through all the hoops just to accept you as you are. That's not a male fantasy, nor is that a fantasy for any man where I need to become something incredibly valuable just to be worthy of your time. You're full of shit. No. I think, the thing is that loud criticism of men has always been accepted. Men can take it, therefore you can continue this narrative. That's just how it's been. Men have this consistent display of being able to endure great modes of suffering, regardless of the positions of their life, as children to the elderly. It doesn't matter. At any stage, you can find boys to men to old men enduring something, because that's the norm. We can take it. We don't buckle, or technically, even though suicide rates are definitely implying otherwise, that we are just supposed to endure. And everyone undertakes some form of suffering, and that's a norm. So because that's a norm, we can undertake more suffering and scrutiny through modes of beliefs and conversations on social media that further criticize, because that's what you're supposed to do, or at least that's what's acceptable. But if we look at the other side of the story, with women stand on this position of autonomic acceptance. Everything is about self-esteem. To some extent, everything is about how a woman feels about certain things. If there's a belief of autonomic acceptance, then they deem themselves as a prize without having to move at all. And if that's not the case, they go ahead and enact masculine features and conduct throughout their life, thinking that develops them into a prize as well. When majority of men do not care about the financial status of a woman, the status of a woman in general, or the social status of a woman typically. What do women care about and to that extent? Well, they want someone who's capable of providing the things that they envision themselves having. But let's stop there for a second, because that's not to say that they're the thing that's worth having those things. It's the matter of wanting those things. So wanting children, wanting to have a family or a marriage, wanting a house. But does that mean that you're a woman that's deserving of children? Does that mean you're a woman deserving of a husband? Does that mean you're a woman deserving of their own home? And this is obviously the argument that's left out in the mud, left out in the rain. We don't want to talk about this, because then that would imply women have to do something. But that goes against all the infantile self-esteem propaganda that women have had to listen to over the past 60 years of you're great as you are. Why do you think that shit don't work with men? Why do you think that shit is not heard in the male space when we talk about development? It's real shit. I talked about this recently of what does motivational content sounds in the two different spaces, right? For men, that shit is critical, motivating to a point where it is so realistic and almost harmful in some cases. Whereas with women, it's keeping them in this self-esteem bubble that everything that they are is exactly what's great and they don't have to change. Whereas men have to change. Men have to endure and evolve, and they can be worthy of the time of a woman who hasn't changed at all. I believe in traditional gender roles. I do. I don't believe they should be enforced, but I do believe that this is something that I'm going to preach as what should happen in society. And I think that there's a bit of a problem here that needs to be resolved. Naturally, as a man, I guess it's in my biological content to want to solve a problem. But it seems to me that there's a lot of advice going around, right? A lot of, well, this is what you should do, and this is what you should do, like in reference to men, and not a whole lot of understanding. And I think that if we want to see a change in how we address what men think is good, or providing the opportunities for men to achieve their various fantasies, regardless of what it is, obviously more so oriented towards a mature outcome, then first and foremost, I think we need to stop trying to give advice to men. And I think it's more about understanding where they're coming from and their specific scenarios of what do they see as the problem and what hurdles are they seeing out in the world, and what does that look like to them? Because I think a lot of the times we portray the trivial obstacles of others through our own personal lens because we're not seeing it through their eyes. Because although they might look like a speed bump to us because of what we've been able to accomplish is a monster or a dragon to them, and they just can't seem to face it. We got to understand a little bit better and be able to break that down, because I think a lot of men are in that boat, and that's where the quiet quitting kind of comes from. Instead of understanding why that is, let's just continue to bash them more because women are upset that they're quietly quitting. I think one way to solve the woman thing is maybe provide some of the equivalent narrative that men receive on the basis of women. Maybe turn down the self-esteem bullshit and turn up narratives of criticism. Hey, you're not God's gift to the earth, and you do need to change. You're not great as you are, and that's going to hurt. So what are you going to do about it to allow yourself to be more prepared for possibly the traditional relationship that bears the fruits of what you want to pursue? As much as you want these things, you can't have them and not sacrifice. They're not possessions to have children, to have a marriage, or a happy marriage at that. I know there's a lot of women out there that want to display the image. They want to look like the thing. They want the status to go up. Yeah, I have kids. I have a husband. I have a home. But then you don't want to be the thing that actually represents that. You don't want to sacrifice the things about yourself in order to achieve that. You want to look like a wife, but you don't want to be wifely. You want to look like a mother or obtain that identity, but you don't want to be motherly. Maybe I'm crazy, but it just seems like this accruement of status is more of a checklist than living benevolently or intrinsically. It's not about if your marriage is a good marriage. It's not even about if you're raising children to be good people. It's not even about if you're actually keeping your home in order, being the peace to that environment through means of a feminine nature. When we got the motivational spaces that women have in most cases, no wonder, right? You're literally told that you're great as you are your whole life. Not everybody, but I would say most women. What makes you think that you're ever going to listen the second you hear criticism from a man that you actually want to relationally pursue? Why do you think there's so many confrontations in those kind of relationships, and why that falls apart the second a man provides criticism? That doesn't mean to say that every man is wise enough to provide that. But on the instances where it does make sense, what are we doing there? I think some of the common themes that you're seeing in female spaces is that they're being taught this belief that they're already everything that they need to be. In addition to that, there's this emphasis on feeling they think leads to the idea of being more empathic when it's not doing any of that. And in fact, they're just reinforcing how they feel specifically about everything else, which disconnects further from their ability to be empathic. So they're not actually going to be able to interpret or engage in how people feel about them or how other people see things, because their own feeling is so reinforced that they consider it an objective truth. So now your criticism is being matched with what is believed to be an objective truth, not realizing that that's just their temporary feelings at the time. And that's typically where a lot of these confrontations come into play. You're not dealing with a woman's emotions because she doesn't perceive them as such. She perceives her emotions as objectivity, not realizing that that's not what they are. It's just that she feels strongly about something at the moment, not realizing that that's just a feeling and that's not a truth. But it is true that she feels that way. But that doesn't make the situation objective. And although that might be confusing, that's what leads to this idea that they can't be wrong, because what they feel can't be wrong. And that's not something that's willing to be accepted. You haven't been criticized enough or held accountable enough in your life to know that you make bad judgments. Because if you knew that about yourself, then you'd be more humble or willing to hear a different opinion, a confronting one, a conflicting one, right? Maybe some shit that you don't want to hear. I think it's on the same basis of men too, when they grow up sheltered, for that matter, or things to that effect. But I think that's all I really got to say about that. Go ahead, hit me in the comments about what you think. What do you think about this interpretation of the average male fantasy? What do you think about Shoe0nhead's interpretation of it? I myself think she's a little off. I think she's right in some cases, but I think that's just how she views it from her lens. Let me know how you feel about mine. I know a lot of men have their own examples and stories that they've kind of endured and went through as a kid, maybe as they got older, maybe even older than that. But I think that this is a common theme that is constantly misconstrued, and hearing a bunch of women just bash men on this concept, I guess, to be expected. But for real, I would love to hear your thoughts. With that being said, thanks again, and I'll go ahead, see you next time.